Hello everybody. I quite like my title up there. I'll explain it. So until recently I was managing director of a residential developer called Hub. I've since left that business and struck out on my own, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we go through. So a little bit about me. This is my background. I suppose I started my development career up at Urban Splash in Manchester and then in Birmingham. My first ever project was Chimney Pot Park in Salford, in Langworthy, which was an interesting scheme. 349 upside-down terraced houses that we sold out in 2.5 hours to people camping in a park who I was serving curry to. And it was quite an experience, completely different market, but wow. I then headed off to Argent at King's Cross in 2008 when the world was sort of falling to pieces in certain markets, and looked after residential development infrastructure, mainly affordable housing, student housing, around the back of the stations there. And then 6.5 years ago I joined some guys who had an idea around mid-market housing at Hub, and we built that business into a business that when I left had about 3,000 homes under development across 11 sites. This one here on the right hand side being Taberner House, designed by AHMM, which is on Croydon Council's old office site, which is 513 homes, 51% affordable, and a new park. So what's it going to be? The seeds of a new venture. I won't bother reading all this out, but it's about homes, it's about workspaces, it's about places, about taking a slightly more human view of how to develop, about how to align interests, about how to manage risk, about how to bring the right sort of money into the right sort of developments, and working in partnership with public and private bodies to deliver real and meaningful change, and most importantly to be respectful and open with existing communities, because I think that's something that my industry is particularly bad at. So what does the developer want to hear? And I'll caveat this a little bit to start off with, in the hope that I am not the traditional developer, and that there are lots of different types of developer out there, from I guess PLC house builders all the way to Mr. and Mrs. Miggins wanting to do a house extension, with perhaps different levels of humanity associated along that range. But I think one of the most important things about it is that all developers are human. They are emotional beasts. They're looking to create an emotional connection and a relationship with a party, which they will hope works for them over potentially quite a long period of time as they realise their projects, and that relationship has to work. And I think other presenters have said similar things, but you need to understand your client. So what have they done before? There's no use in pitching a load of high-end residential if they're really interested in delivering affordable homes. What do they talk about in the press? Just have a bit of a look, see what really floats their boat, and how you might understand them. Who do you know that they might know? You know, dropping a name in a pitch is maybe quite a useful thing to do, if you know that there's somebody common there who can vouch for you and might give you a bit more kudos. And really sort of understand their drivers. And the previous presentation talked a lot about what, why, who, and how. Really try and understand their why. Why are they doing this? It's a really important question, and it's not always just about money. So the drivers, philanthropy. It'd be lovely if everybody did development just for philanthropy. And then there's profit, which is the dirty word, but the necessary, really, especially if you want to deliver some philanthropy. And maybe that's called surplus rather than profit in that situation. But the numbers have to stack. And how do you make those projects work? How do you make that profit? How do you make that surplus? Lots of different ways. And this is what you need to consider, I guess, when you're talking to a potential new client. You can make some more space. Let's find some space on the site that developer might not have noticed was there. You can talk about reducing costs, ways in which you can get developments to work harder by cutting the costs and still delivering really beautiful architecture and really great value. And then this really important one is by adding value, so by moving the equation in the opposite direction. So unlocking value on opportunities and creating more valuable space, really getting in the heads of the developer client, but also getting in the heads of the end user, the end client, and trying to work out what would make that space more valuable. But use examples to illustrate Make sure you're not just giving people same old, same old. Make sure there's some innovation, and don't make promises you can't back up. I've sat in many architects' pitches where architects have come along and told me that they can increase the value of properties on my site by 10%, or that if you have a view of the river, then the value will increase by 25%. And that may be true, but you need to back it up. You can't just throw these numbers around, because you'll end up getting unstuck. Really important, be an architect. Understand your value and be creative. You know, developers are not perhaps the most creative people in the world a lot of the time, and that's really where you need to jump in. You need to sketch. Get a piece of paper out on the table, sketch things up, show that you can be sort of adaptable, and show some sketches of stuff that you've done in the past. There's no point in starting from a completely shiny, beautiful looking building when you've had absolutely no interaction with the person who's going to be paying you to undertake that task. Invite interaction. So reach across the table with a pen and a piece of paper and start having a two-way conversation, and have strong and purposeful ideas. So make sure that there's some point to this, but get to the point. Again, I've had pitches from architects who've overanalyzed the hell out of areas and places, gone round and round and round for up to an hour of analysis before they even showed anything that they would propose for that site. And you're going to struggle to keep people's attention in that way. And take the client into your proposals. This is about building a place or a building or a space that you want to deliver. So it has to be believable, and the client has to understand that you understand what that place will feel like. Understand how the proposal will be built. Don't go balancing buildings over things that you know they can't be balanced over, and really try and understand the construction method for this building. Be flexible. And this takes me back to my previous point. Either work within the budget that the developer's setting you, or show some really concrete ideas about how you can grow that budget by growing the value. So in conclusion, know your worth, sketch, which we talked about, add as much value as you can to the project. Don't bullshit your way through things, because you'll get unstuck very, very, very quickly. Strike a balance and get to the point. Thank you.